Continuing off from chapter 1 on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Mr. L. Prosser was, as they say, only human. In other words, he was a carbon-based life form descended from an ape. More specifically, he was 40, fat and shabby, and worked for the local council. Curiously enough, though he didn't know it, he was a direct male line descendant of Genghis Khan, though intervening generations and racial mixing had so juggled his genes that he had no discernible mongoloid characteristics, and the only vestiges left in Mr. L. Prosser of his mighty ancestry were a pronounced stoutness about the thumb and a predilection for little fur hats. He was by no means a great warrior. In fact, he was a nervous, worried man. Today, he was particularly nervous and worried because something had gone seriously wrong with his job, which was to see that Arthur Dent's house got cleared out of the way before the day was out. "Come off it, Mr. Dent," he said. "You can't win, you know. You can't lie in front of the bulldozer indefinitely." He tried to make his eyes blaze fiercely, but they wouldn't do it. Arthur lay in the mud and squashed at him. "I'm game," he said. "We'll see who rusts first." "I'm afraid you're going to have to accept it," said Mr. Prosser, gripping his fur hat and rolling it around the top of his head. "This bypass has got to be built, and it's going to be built." "First I've heard of it," said Arthur. "Why is it going to be built?" Mr. Prosser shook his finger at him for a bit, then stopped and put it away again. "What do you mean, why has it got to be built?" he said. "It's a bypass. You've got to build bypasses. Bypasses are devices which allow some people to drive from point A to point B very fast, while other people dash from point B to point A very fast. People living at point B, being a point directly in between, are often given to wonder what's so great about point A that so many people from point B are so keen to get there, and what's so great about point B that so many people from point A are so keen to get there. They often wish that people just once and for all work out where the hell they want to be. Mr. Prosser wanted to be at point D. Point D wasn't anywhere in particular. It was just in any convenient point, a very long way away from points A, B, and C. He would have a nice little cottage at point D, with access over the door, and spend a pleasant amount of time at point E, which would be the nearest pub to point D. His wife, of course, wanted climbing roses, but he wanted access. He didn't know why, he just liked access. He flushed hotly under the derisive grins of the bulldozer's drivers. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, but it was equally uncomfortable on each. Obviously, someone had been appallingly incompetent, and he hoped to God it wasn't him. Mr. Prosser said, "You were quite entitled to make any suggestions or protests at the appropriate time, you know." "Appropriate time?" hooted Arthur. "Appropriate time? The first I knew about it was when a workman arrived at my home yesterday. I asked him if he'd come to clean the windows, and he said no, he'd come to demolish my house. He didn't tell me straight away, of course. Oh no. First he wiped a couple of windows and charged me a $5. Then he told me. But Mr. Dent, the plans have been available in the local planning office for the last 9 months. "Oh yes? Well, as soon as I heard, I went round to see them. Yesterday afternoon. You hadn't exactly gone out of your way to call attention to them, had you? I mean, like, actually telling anybody or anything? But the plans were on display." "On display?" "I eventually had to go down to the cellar to find them." That's the display department." "With the torch?" "Ah, well, the lights had particularly gone. So had the stairs. But look, you found the notice, didn't you?" "Yes."